So my shortcut colors are ivory black, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, and yellow ochre. All right, welcome to Paint Coach. If you're new to the channel, my name is Chris Fornatero, and I help thousands of students every single month get better at painting through my online courses and tutorials. So before I talk about shortcut colors, let's talk about the primaries first, because that's where this all starts, and that's where I highly recommend you start out if you are just beginning. The primaries that I like to use are ultramarine blue, cadmium red, and cadmium lemon. And of course, there's always titanium white is there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you colors in certain paintings, how I'd mix those with the primaries, and then how using my shortcut colors shortcuts that process. But now, before I even jump in, like if you don't even know how to use the primaries or you struggle with the primaries, I've made a free color coaching guide where I go into depth on how to go about thinking about it and how to make color mixing as simple and as easy as possible so you can start, having fun painting and using the right colors. If you want to check that out, there's a link to it in the description of this video. All right, so let's first start out with ivory black. When do I use that? Well, I use that a lot in my my portraits. And here's a master copy from Anders Zorn, and perfectly fitting enough, the Zorn palette is ivory black, yellow ochre, cadmium red, and titanium white. So for example, like a lot of times I'll use ivory black for the shadows, but let me show you, how you can get that with just the primer. So if I was wanting to get something like that, I'd look at it, and first off I say, it's like, it seems like either desaturated purple or it's a very dark orange. Either way, like I know, okay, I'm going to start with just some blue. So I'm just using blue, red, yellow. Let me start there. Like, okay, I got a purple. Let me add a little bit of yellow. All right, that's kind of pushing a little too green. Let me go back to the red. And I recommend just having these primaries first, because when we put these shortcut colors in, I'm just thinking about them as either a blue, a red, or a yellow, meaning ivory black to me is just a desaturated blue. Alizarin crimson to me is a cooler red than my cadmium red, but it's still a red. Burnt sienna, it's also cooler, but it's more of a desaturated red. Yellow ochre, it's a yellow, but it's a desaturated yellow. So just using the primaries, I've gotten something pretty close to that. So what is this pretty much? It's a purple that's desaturated with a little bit of yellow, maybe push the red a little bit more. So how does ivory black shortcut that? Well, if you think of ivory black as blue, you need blue and red to get purple. But if your blue is desaturated, you kind of skip the step of having to desaturate it a little bit. So if I make a purple using ivory black, let's just say my cad red, I might need to get a little bit of white in there to lighten it up. But you can see it's already getting me there pretty close. I still might need to push a little bit of yellow to get it there, but you can see how close it already is. But let's take it a step further. What if I used two shortcut colors? What if I used ivory black, burnt sienna? Could I get there with just two? Well, looked pretty close. Pretty close. Maybe a touch of white. So that's what I mean when I say shortcut colors. So that's pretty close there. Maybe a little bit of the cad red. But you can see how I'm still thinking about the ivory black as a blue, thinking about the burnt sienna as a red to shortcut the process. Let's do another example. Let's talk about alizarin crimson. Now, I like crimson because whenever I mix a green in a landscape, I have to desaturate it with its complement red. I never have just straight green, like if I just took my blue my yellow and made a green. You're never going to see that green in nature. So I need to knock it back. So say if I needed to get that mount in the distance. So I got my green here. What do I do to it? Well, I'm definitely going to have to lighten it. I'm going to put a little white. But now I want to desaturate it. So if I did use this red here, the cadmium red, I'd have to put that in there. Here, I'll show you, I guess. Put that in there, but it's a little too warm, so I'm gonna have to come back with a little more blue, a little more red. I kind of have to bounce back and forth, desaturate it, and then cool it down a little bit to get it there. And even still, it's kind of tough to keep it relatively cool. But this red, it's a cooler red. So I can put it in and it'll desaturate it, but it'll keep it pretty cool. So that's what I'm going to do there. A little more white. Yep. So that's how I use crimson a lot when I need to desaturate greens that are in the distance. Because it almost pushes it more towards that purple. But yeah, I mean, it's wet paint on top of dry paint, but you can see how close you can get it and how much quicker it is using the crimson opposed to the cadmium red. All right, let's do another example. This time, let's talk about burnt sienna. Now, burnt sienna comes in handy a lot with sand, like this sand color right here. I see it as a light desaturated purple. So if I did this normally, do blue, red, get a purple, and then I'd have to lighten it and then desaturate it with yellow and the red and the white and the yellow again, just kind of dialing in that desaturated purple because yellow is purple's complement until I get something pretty close there. A little more white, a little more red, but pretty close. Now the great thing with burnt sienna, it's a desaturated red, so that process of having to add the yellow to desaturate, not gonna have to do, or at least not nearly as much. So if I did blue, I use this all the time. Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. See how that gives you like a very desaturated purple? So now it's kind of just a matter of lightening it up. And you can get to that color very, very quickly. Made it a little too light, but I use burnt sienna a lot for that. Also, in the same painting here, rocks, I use burnt sienna a lot for the rocks too, but it's like a very desaturated purple. So it's pretty much the same thing. You get some blue, maybe a very little bit of white, and a lot of burnt sienna. So you got a saturated purple already, but I think I remember with this, a little bit of crimson. I think I cooled it a little bit with some crimson, but yeah. Makes it a lot faster when you got the burnt sienna. All right, now let's talk about yellow ochre. Yellow ochre comes in handy a lot with skin tones. I mean, you put, just show you real quick, kind of generic light flesh tone. I mean, you just get white and yellow ochre, you're pretty close, and then a touch of crimson, you're pretty close right there. So I definitely use it a lot. I mean, that's why it's in the Zorn palette. Let's talk about yellow ochre in a landscape real quick. Yellow ochre is really helpful for trees in the distance. Because again, you've got a green, like say these are trees that are in the foreground or grass in the foreground. It's very saturated, but they need to sit in the distance a little more, so they need to be a little desaturated. So for these, pretty much just used some blue. It's probably too much blue, but a lot of just yellow ochre. It's going to give you kind of like an olive green. Maybe a little bit of white here. But you can see how that's like a very desaturated green right away. They'll sit nice in the distance. See, if I did this with just the primaries, I'd do the blue and then the yellow, I'd get the green, and then I have to desaturate it with the red. Whereas here, go a little lighter, I can get it right away. A little more yellow ochre. Yeah, something like that. There's probably, I probably put a little bit of the cad lemon in it. Yeah. But yeah, yellow ochre for any kind of greens in the distance is going to help out a lot. All right, that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. I'm Chris Fornataro, here telling you to go get painting.